Have you seen the news? I'm right-wing now. Let's talk about how right-wing I am and why I'm right-wing.
Like, you know, there are areas where we disagree, but I believe that you love your children. I believe that you're a man of principle, that you care about what you're saying, that you're on your journey. And I don't think that I know enough about the world to foreclose on your right to say stuff.
What I'm saying is you wouldn't be able to be you if, for example, you were coming up in more so the right-wing echo chamber, which is something I fight against a lot.
So hello everyone. Now, once again, from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, I am spending my third month in Vietnam over the last 6 and a bit months, and it is the final part of my journey before I go to Tokyo, Kyoto, and Seoul, before returning to the capitalist hellhole that is the UK. Now, what is funny is that I was watching some old videos I made on Russell Brand, and one of them I actually made in Vietnam, in Hanoi as well, where I'm staying right now again. And just on a little tangent, I was laughing while watching that video because I remember I said at the start that you could only be a socialist if you lived in Vietnam. And also, I was the only British leftist on YouTube. Now that Russell Brand had gone weird libertarian ego grifter, for a long, long time, Russell Brand was the only left-wing English YouTuber on this whole platform. But now Russell Brand is not a left-wing YouTuber, he is a centrist ego grifter. I'll explain that a bit later, leaving only me as the sole remaining English-Irish leftist YouTuber. It's a heavy burden to bear, but I think I'm doing a pretty good job as the only person in England who talks about left-wing politics on their own YouTube channel. And I just remember people taking that super seriously and not realizing I was joking. But on that note, we are talking about Russell Brand, and I have covered him a lot. I've made 2 massive videos on him about a year ago. And then I made another video about his reaction to the objectively hilarious death of Queen Elizabeth II, in that he seemingly abandoned all his anti-monarchy sentiment and was just talking about what she meant to people and stuff. It was really, really bizarre. But you guys might have seen this circling on social media, that Russell Brand is not even trying to hide that he's just pandering firmly to the right wing. Now, do I think Russell Brand is right wing? No, I don't, but I also know that he is grifting towards the right wing so he can build this massive audience on social media. And I believe he purposefully frames his more left-wing views on things like the economy in ways that pander to right-wing people, for example. Russell Brand has basically been anti-capitalism for as long as he's been on YouTube, but now what he does is he takes that and he basically only attacks people that the right-wing hate, rather than attacking the system overall, right? So he's always attacking Joe Biden, Justin Trudeau, Anthony Fauci, the CEO of Pfizer, loads of corporate execs that right-wing people hate, like Bill Gates. And that's all fine, that's all fair game. But that's all he does, and he does it in a right-wing conspiratorial view. Think about his education coming from the Jimmy Dore School of Economics, where because vaccines are made by a pharmaceutical company, that means they've pretty much invented the pandemic to sell you vaccines or something like that. It's a very weird way of framing anti-capitalism and things like anti-imperialism, which we spoke about in a video, the other week about Tulsi Gabbard and Jimmy Dore. And although in a weird way, I think Russell Brand might be more principled than them in some ways, it seems like the mask has been firmly removed, basically because he's now in business with Rumble. Rumble that claims to be this free speech alternative to YouTube, but I wouldn't call it that. I'd call it a far-right alternative to YouTube, which has culminated on him collaborating with Steven Crowder, once Steven Crowder also signed a deal with Rumble, I think yesterday, because nothing says principled leftists than sanitizing the reputation of an extremely racist, transphobic, and anti-Semitic bigot that is Steven Crowder. I think out of all the conservative YouTubers, he just has to be the most mask off everything. It's not even subtle, he doesn't try and hide it. So I guess Rumble is a perfect place for him. So all of that's coming up for you today. Please like the video, and in the comments, I guess I'd ask people, what has your experience been with Russell Brand? Like I said in previous videos, I used to watch him on and off when I was 18, 19, then just didn't really watch him, and then I became aware of him again when he started becoming this weird ego grifter, but let me know down in the comments. Also, follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter and also on Instagram. Instagram is where I'm archiving and posting about my travels around Southeast Asia, and that is all archived on my profile page, and it's broken down by month. So if you want to catch up with what I've been up to, the places I've been, it is all on my Instagram page, and just a better place to engage with me and engage with me personally rather than just stuff I tweet about like politics all the time, things like that. Also, if you care about that, I've uploaded some travel content on my Patreon page, and I've recorded a third video about me and my girlfriend's experience in Thailand, hopefully going to go up this month. Other benefits include getting access to the Discord server and getting my Nintendo Switch friend codes. If you care about any of that, please check out the Patreon page, and also check out my subreddit and check out my second channel down in the description. So I guess on YouTube, I am the only leftist who has covered Russell Brand like really extensively in terms of like his whole political career on YouTube, rather than just attacking him on certain issues. Basically, for you guys who are unfamiliar with his career path, I guess, Russell Brand used to host like political shows on radio, but he's also like an OG political YouTuber. His first videos he made on politics on YouTube go back to like 2014, and this took the form of his show called The Truths, and basically what it started off as is just him reading through the newspaper and reacting to it. And like I've said in previous videos, it actually had some charm. And if you go back and watch them, Russell talks with his old accent, and something I've also noted with David Beckham and people like Russell Brand, they purposefully changed their accent to become more acceptable, I guess, to like mainstream society. And I guess it makes them seem more credible in some ways. As someone who constantly gets comments on my dialect and the way I say certain things, I would just say to anyone, just be yourself and don't tone it down or don't change it just to fit in. But it's interesting these videos are all still up, because we can compare Russell Brand from 2014, 15 and 16 to Russell Brand in 2021, 22 and 23, and the difference is really night and day. So for example, something he was quite infamous for in the UK, something I respected him for, is that he was one of the few actors who was really, really pro-Palestinian. And then he went from that to being some weird centrist on Israel-Palestine in 2021. So hopefully I'm going to play you some clips that contrast his old views with his new views on the situation.
The military made precise calculations of Gaza's daily calorie needs to avoid malnutrition so as to restrict the quantity of food it allowed during a blockade. They made calculations of what the calorific requirements were and to keep it restricted. They're trying to keep people on the brink of poverty. The agreement and the division of the land when Palestine got taken away from them and the numerous wars and the encroachment of territory. They ain't got much power there in Gaza. Like, they've only got, like, I mean, their little network of tunnels and their few puny rockets. That's what it boils down to. Israel gets billions of dollars of military aid. It's a proper hardcore army, nuclear arsenal. Some would consider the arming of Israel, the constant bombardment, the murder of children, to be terrorist. But that's not how Israel sees it, or how the United States sees it, and when Britain was occupying India or Ireland or all of the countries.
People have been asking me to comment on the situation in Israel and the conflict between the people of the Gaza Strip, the Palestinians, and the people of Israel. And the reason I haven't is because I've been sort of doubtful that I've got anything positive to add to what seems like a situation that is defined by polarity and intransigence. I feel like it's such a complex and challenging problem, such a challenging issue, that by getting into it, when people ask you even to do a video, what they're really saying is come out on my side, speak on my behalf. And I feel like as a person over here in England, and the role of the country I'm from in creating this situation historically is a sort of an important and an unhealthy and pretty tainted one, I feel like I don't have anything particularly positive to offer. Whose hands are clean? Who in the world is free to comment on an issue like this?
And why would he do this? Why would he back down? It's because he wants to be as liked as possible. He wants to appeal to all sides, but also he knows he has a right-wing audience. What do right-wingers love? They love Israel. So you're not going to start siding with the Palestinians, your new audience of weird conservatives, so you just change your opinion. And on that note as well, Russell Brand absolutely hates the royal family, or at least it seems like he used to hate them, because he made loads of videos talking about how they are basically a symbol of inequality in Britain. They shouldn't exist, and they're basically a monument to Britain's failings. Contrast that with when the Queen died, and he seems like he won't say a bad word about the Queen or the royal family, when it was exactly the time to say it, as I said it.
Queen announces Queen's speech. Like, when they're doing these speeches about austerity and how, like, you know, given the limited resources, we're going to have to do fracking now, don't you ever sort of think, ain't you in a great big gold house? How poor are you? I mean, that is mad, isn't it? That shouldn't be happening anymore. We're a sophisticated species now. We've evolved beyond that. We don't need people in great big gold houses covered in medals for stuff they can't possibly have done.
There's a song called God Save the Queen, sung all the bloody time. It's not irrational, it's coaching. That's coaching, hypnosis, brainwashing, conditioning. I've got it as well. I'm happy to give him 61p a year to stay around. It's not 61p, mate. It's freedom that you're paying. It's costing you a lot more than money to have her on your money.
Wearing black too, because she's a human being who has been ubiquitously present in the lives of everybody. I am respectful of the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II and respectful of the death of Queen Elizabeth II, as I would be of any human being, but this is not any human being. This is a symbol, and symbols can be mutable. There is not a universal Queen Elizabeth II. She will mean many things to many people, but she means something to all of us, and I'm respectful of that fact.
And also, when a Scottish anti-monarchy protester was assaulted by monarchists during this period, he also tried to both sides this as well.
Isn't it difficult in this culture war to not pick a side? Do you see how you're being invited to pick a side? I can sympathise with the people that felt angered and hurt and wounded and shoved that bloke because they're pissed off because they feel like they've lost someone or something that they love. That's what they feel. And I can also empathise with this guy who's feeling like, well, I don't want to play along with this systemic narrative that plays into ideas around elitism and privilege. How do we, therefore, hold together those two ideas?
Has Russell Brand's politics changed? I don't believe so, because if you go looking for it, you can still find some of the old Russell and some of the old political views he held back in the day in some of his videos. But then in a lot of his videos, it seems like he's done a 180. And I just firmly believe this is just him pandering to a certain audience. And what I've always consistently said is this feels like it's more than money. It feels like ego grifting. It feels like he's a narcissist, wants to be like this spiritual leader, political leader, even like a cult leader. That's what he cares about. He cares about how many people care about his political, philosophical views, rather than so much caring about money. But that could also factor in, because if you want to make money making political content, you either do this weird centrist thing like Tim Pool, or you do this pandering to the right wing like Jimmy Dore, or I guess Russell Brand combines them where he does both, and you focus all your attacks and energy against people the right wing hate, but you will never criticize people the right wing love. You really can't find Russell saying many bad words about like Ron DeSantis or saying many bad words even about Donald Trump these days. He's always been like pro Elon Musk, pro Jordan Peterson, pro right-wing anything, pro weird libertarians, and also getting people like Tim Pool on his show and just platforming them to say whatever things they want, like literally anything they want, and he doesn't challenge them. Not only that, he also praises them a lot, and he doesn't really want to challenge them and all the crazy stuff they say. In my mind, Tim Pool is one of the worst right-wingers on YouTube, up there with Stephen Crowder, in that he pretends to be a centrist liberal, but then platforms the worst right-wing people, and he lets them say whatever they want. Maybe he has a limit in not letting Kanye and Mario Yiannopoulos say whatever they want. Pretty much anyone else he gets on his show, he lets them speak, lets them say whatever they want, and he pretty much agrees with everything they say. Look how Russell Brand basically describes him in an interview that came out like last week.
Tim, I know you're really, really busy now because you're running an incredible organisation. The terms of left and right are becoming, in a sense, defunct and more diffuse because it's now easier to view power in terms of centralised power versus peripheral power. Where do you find yourself as an independent journalist who reports continually on stories that, in a sense, require a trans political coalition if ever there were to be a movement to change them? And how do you you manage that space? Because it's one of the questions I sort of ask of myself. On one level, I like the reporting to be incendiary. I like it to be emotional. But I feel that there is an absolute necessity for journalistic diligence. And it's certainly not a claim that I'm making personally, because I work in an entirely different way than you do. I know that you're much more responsible for the creation of your content. I'm lucky to work with some great people in developing the content that I create. But do you feel often that it would be easier if you took a deliberate stand, or do you think inquiry and a general anti-establishment position is sort of strong enough, and that does your journalistic integrity require that you stay within certain lines?
I think I can't assert things that I don't know or believe. And I know there's a lot of people who do. I know that you can see the fall of some once great independent media establishments. I'm not going to name any, but they used to be considered truth tellers. But then over time, they realize where the money is and how to make money. And I said this back in 2011 during Occupy Wall Street, when I'm getting a bunch of attention. I get all these activists saying, oh, Tim's a real journalist. He's telling the truth. And you know, not like the corporate press and all that stuff. And I said, it's only a matter of time before you will turn on me and say the exact same thing in the inverse, that I'm a corporate shill, or that I'm a liar, or that I'm a spy, or something like that.
I just really love the notion that Tim Pool is like some respectable journalist who just won't say stuff that isn't in touch with reality. This guy on his live streams literally exclusively reads the right-wing press like the Daily Mail, right? Not really beacons of journalism, but Russell Brand like trying to frame him like this truth teller, someone with standards. I wouldn't call you offensive, Tim Pool. You've clearly chosen where you are sitting. It's with the right wing. Do you think fence sitters get to go play Mario Kart 64 with the whole Daily Wire crew?
We're going to swap out Mr. Clayton for Mr. Pool.
Oh, now you got the talent. The talent is coming.
Oh yeah,
All
right. How's it going, man? Good to see you
Going
guys.
on, man?
Thanks for letting me destroy you guys in Mario Kart.
Yeah, dude. I think
absolutely.
Oh shoot! I hit that bomb.
I'm only hitting the final lap now, so I don't know. Oh, wow.
I'm still on the first lap, I think.
Oh, and I'm getting hit by turtle shells. What kind of crazy shitty world is this? You're just going along minding your own business, suddenly you get hit by lightning in a turtle shell.
Are they really inviting centrists and liberals on that, Tim Pool? Or have you actually chosen a side, which is very clear from all the guests you have on, and is very clear from basically every single video you make? Russell Brand doesn't care about that. Russell Brand doesn't want to challenge him. He will happily have Tim on to say whatever he wants, because Russell Brand only cares about the cross-pollination of their audiences, and he probably knows Tim's knucklehead audience would probably like the stuff he's saying, because they target the same people. Even if they're not necessarily coming from the exact same place, Russell Brand knows what he makes at the moment appeals to people who are fans of Tim Pool and Jimmy Dore and those types of people. Occasionally, Russell Brand will have some more like left-wing people on. He had like a Corbyn advisor talking about how like good trade unions were recently, but that seems few and far between. He also went on Bill Maher recently and started criticizing the corporate press. And while I don't disagree with what he was saying about the corporate press having these massive corporate backers, at the same time, he was then mad about them for something they said about Joe Rogan and like alternative medicine to like coronavirus and stuff like that. Doesn't really seem like the stuff I would be mad about. But then I saw loads of conservatives and liberals giving him like a load of credit for this. And it's like, I'm not really going to give him much credit for saying something very obvious. And it really just plays into his whole narrative at the moment, is that anything related to the left and liberals is bad. Like, of course, I hate corporate media. I hate liberal media. I hate liberals in general. And I can agree with Russell Brand on some things to do with liberals, but that's really the extent of it. And I'm not going to apply my criticism just to liberals when I'm talking about the whole corporate press or just like the capitalistic press machine. So something Russell has got quite sensitive about in the last couple of years is that people call him right-wing. And basically what he says when he's interviewing other people, he's saying he's being called right-wing because he believes in free speech. He's being called right-wing because he won't necessarily buy into a lot of like liberal identity politics, and he won't demonize like people with conservative views. So he feels like because of that, people call him right-wing. And like I said, I don't think Russell Brand is actually right-wing. Like personally, I don't think he's right-wing, but I do think he's very weird politics. And I think lately it's shown that these personal politics don't really matter so much if the right wing might be offering you an opportunity to expand your influence and expand your reach and maybe give you a nice paycheck along the way. So this image was circulating on social media, and I didn't know where it was from, but it was Russell Brand with Donald Trump Jr. and Donald Trump Jr.'s wife. And then I just found out it was actually on her Instagram, and she posted, grand opening of the new headquarters for Rumble in Florida with Donald Trump Jr. and the whole amazing Rumble team, plus our great friend, Real Devin Nunes, head of Truth Social. Naturally couldn't resist a pic with the incomparable Russell Brand. So then I was just reading about like what even was this, and an article in OK said the pair came out to celebrate Rumble, debuting their new location in Florida, but they were hardly the only famous faces there. Russell Brand was also in attendance. I know a lot of right-wingers post on Rumble as like this like mirror to their YouTube, like in case their YouTube gets like deleted or something. But I didn't know that Russell Brand had this. Like, I saw this live stream appear in like his live archive. Didn't know what it was. So Russell Brand launches exclusive daily live show on Rumble. So the Rumble, the video sharing platform, has announced that Russell Brand will start a new daily show. Stay Free with Russell Brand will stream exclusively on Rumble at 1 p.m. from the 28th of September. The channel will provide an alternative news source that is both inclusive and progressive, exploring global events and providing unique perspectives on culture, news, and politics. We are here to serve our community, which includes everyone, said Russell Brand. We are here to question everything. We are here to have a laugh, to build back better, and make news great again. Stay free. We are excited to empower Russell to grow his audience on Rumble and locals, said Rumble CEO Chris Pavlovsky. Russell is known for his unfiltered opinions, and we are proud to serve as a technology platform where he can grow his audience. I couldn't find this live stream on Russell Brand's Rumble page. I did just have a quick glance over his Rumble, and his views are actually pretty good. So obviously he recently had an interview with Steven Crowder, which nearly has 800k for Rumble. That's like pretty good. Has nearly 1 million followers on Rumble. Has other videos, 44k, 143k. I mean, it's pretty decent. But I've had someone from Odyssey reach out to me before, trying to get me to put my videos on Odyssey, which is like another right-wing video sharing site. And I basically said to them, like, why would I feel welcome there? Like, I'm a communist YouTuber. Everyone on that platform is right-wing. Why would I want to promote this platform? And also, what would the audience do to my videos there, right? I'm not some weird ego grifter like Russell Brand. So if I put like this video on Rumble or Odyssey, I'm just going to get insane harassment. Although this platform says it's about like free speech and stuff like that, Russell Brand is not naive. He's getting a picture of Donald Trump Jr. All these conservatives are at the launch party, and we only have to look at Rumble itself and Rumble's Instagram page to show it's not about free speech, it's about right-wing speech, and it's about creating a platform for right-wingers, which is fine, you're free to do that, but Russell Brand being on that is giving like some more credibility to it, and he doesn't mind like ruining his own credibility with more like leftist people by basically selling out to be on Rumble. If you go on Rumble's like new Instagram page, it's relatively new, you just look at their posts. So they have a post of Russell Brand talking about his new live stream show. You even have Ron DeSantis making a personal video about how he's happy Rumble have chose Florida as like their new headquarters. Like, are you really telling me this site is for like free speech?
Hi, I'm Governor Ron DeSantis, and I want to congratulate all of you at Rumble as you open your U.S. headquarters here in Florida. Ever since the big tech censorship regime at Google tried to silence me on YouTube, my official office has adopted Rumble as our video sharing service of choice because Rumble stands for freedom of speech.
Guy who embodies the crackdown on free speech in America is endorsing this site and welcoming it to Florida. Yeah, great free speech platform right here. You have Steven Crowder signing his new contract. We're going to talk about that a bit more. And then if you actually just go on Rumble, this is my screenshots from just going on it. So the top of the page featured was Russell Brand sitting down with Steven Crowder, meaning Rumble have promoted this because it's not a meritocracy. They're promoting this because they're hoping these two people really help grow their platform. But if you just like go on the site itself, the videos are all just from like some of the most terrible right-wing people like Dan Bongino, Fresh and Fit, Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump Jr.'s wife. And if you go on Rumble's very own featured channels, I don't know about you, I can't seem to really find any featured channel that isn't right-wing. Granted, I don't know all of these, but let's have a look at some of them. Ben Shapiro, Bannon's War Room, The Dive with Jackson Hinkle, Newsmax TV, Timcast IRL, Tate's Speech, Geeks and Gamers Clips, Majid Nawaz, Sports Wars, Nerdrotic, Donald Trump Jr., Devin Nunes. I pretty much don't even need to know anything about those other channels featured there to have like a 99% certainty they are like some far-right American conservatives being featured there. And again, Russell Brand is going on this platform because it's meant to be good for free speech, and it's being endorsed by someone like Ron DeSantis, who loves free speech apparently as well. And it just clearly shows that Russell Brand knows where his bread is buttered, knows where his audience are coming from, knows what his audience wants. Because if Russell Brand truly cared about his leftist politics, firstly, why would you sit down with so many of the people he sits down with and basically doesn't challenge them on anything? And then, of course, why would you become the face of Rumble? And then Russell Brand is doing this interview with Steven Crowder. And let me just say, he's basically doing this interview as like a Rumble employee. It's really embarrassing because this isn't a conversation with Steven Crowder about why they love Rumble, although that is there. We're going to talk about that. It's more like, hey, Steven Crowder, why is Rumble so great? And so many times throughout the interview, you guys can go watch this, it basically is like Steven Crowder going on a tangent about how great Rumble is. The context of this, basically, Steven Crowder left The Blaze and is going like independent. And of course, we had all that drama a couple months ago where the Daily Wire offered him like a $50 million contract to be exclusive to the Daily Wire over like 4 years or something. Like absolutely ridiculous money, but he rejected it. And I've been speculating for a while. He's wanted to get banned off YouTube so he could use that as momentum to do something like Rumble, do his own thing. But he actually used the contract offer to go after the Daily Wire and calling them big con. He believes they all self-censor themselves so they can get on YouTube and get around YouTube's terms of service, and he wasn't going to do that, and that's why he signed a big deal with Rumble. Do I think they're giving him $50 million over 4 years? I mean, I don't even know at this point. I didn't think the Daily Wire could just pull that kind of money out and just give it to one guy, but we had that, so maybe Rumble have a load of money to get Russell Brand and Steven Crowder on this. But yeah, on that note, let's watch some of their interview.
We've got 45 minutes right now to discuss the reasons that you've joined Rumble. In particular, for you and I, there's obvious areas where we wouldn't agree explicitly, overtly,
right.
But what we both agree with is our right to have public conversations about our beliefs, both political and spiritual, and perhaps through dialogue and conversation, reach areas of common ground, and certainly to conduct these conversations in a spirit of mutual respect. Most people have known that you've been in a period of transition because it's been a big online story in itself it's been a saga, Stephen.
Yeah.
So will you just talk us through how you've come to be on Rumble right now and why in particular you're joining Rumble?
Well, we've been in this period of transition actually, and there have been some issues that we can discuss that we can't discuss contractually, but a lot of suitors who came forward, and Rumble was really just the only place that gets it. They understand the idea of free speech. And I've heard people complain, say, oh, Rumble's too right-wing. I go, hold on a second, you think Russell Brand is right-wing? Now, of course, if you allow all free speech, you're naturally going to have the people who've been ostracized, the people who've been censored, migrate there first. Hopefully, long-term, Rumble will be, an alternative to a place like YouTube where people can actually speak freely. But
so there's two interesting things in that first clip. The Russell Brand's framing of this is really interesting, like saying he knows they don't agree on so many things, but hoping they can find common ground. And I'm not naive to think that often when you're in politics, you need lots of people to all come together and like vote for a candidate or support certain policies, and they might not all agree on certain things, in electoral politics that is. But when it comes to two like massive celebrities talking about this stuff, I don't know how much common ground you're going to find that is genuine, because you just don't have the same problems as other people. Like, you can have a nice conversation with Steven Crowder, and the things that you will come to an agreement on aren't really things that most people who have difference of politics will agree on. So fundamentally, I think most Americans support universal healthcare, regardless of political background. And that's because of their material needs. And that's because they want their country to move in a certain direction in this regard, right? But the things these two agree on is like, oh yeah, like, big tech censoring conservatives. In my mind, these two aren't representatives of a conservative and a left-wing people finding common ground to make humanity better. It's literally like they are very wealthy people, they're influential people. The things they will agree on are not things that the most of us will even care about, to be honest. But again, I go back to the Instagram post, just so ironic. The company that gets free speech just loves promoting Ron DeSantis. And regardless of what your politics, if you are conservative watching this, you can't tell me Ron DeSantis is pro free speech.
So you have like created a pretty powerful community there with your mug club.
Yeah.
And some of the shows of yours that I've thought have really given me pause for thought, even though, as we've already mentioned, and will be clear to anybody that's familiar with our work, there are points of disagreement, but as the cultural landscape continues to shift, as censorship continues to, broadly speaking, become exacerbated, it's clear that new forms of alliance and conviviality are going to be necessary. And I feel like the areas where we agree is generally personal autonomy, the ability to run your own community. Obviously and evidently, we should make clear on this platform the right to speak freely and disagree. One of the things I've always enjoyed is the sense of community that you bring to Mug Club. And do you feel like even in some of your targets comedically that there's a sort of a sense of warmth and engagement? How much anger do you feel there is in the stuff you do?
If you were to hear the left, they would say that we're bullies because they say you should only punch up.
So knowing everything you do about Steven Crowder's comedy, insanely racist, literally dressing up as like racist caricatures of like a Japanese person, obviously dressing up in really transphobic caricatures of transgender people, the way Russell Brand describes that, and even tries to lay it up like, oh, do you think there's a degree of warmth you do your comedy? Steven Crowder is a very, very nasty person. And this is testimony from people in conservative circles who work with him. Even Candace Owens was going on rants saying, yeah, I know loads of people who've worked with him and say he's an absolute tyrant. And the way Russell Brand is framing him and his community, like, oh, it's a really, really nice, like, inclusive environment. And even your comedy is very warm. It's just insane to me that any principled leftist would even want to sit down and have a conversation with Steven Crowder in the first place, knowing all the stuff he's done and what he believes, but even try and frame him as some sort of positive force and frame him as a person that you can have some sort of agreement with, because Russell Brand and Steven Crowder, probably personally, really don't agree on much. But the way Russell Brand frames it as like these really vague concepts about like bodily autonomy and freedom of speech, again, to me is just pretty ridiculous, because like we've said with Rumble, it's a hypocritical thing anyway, and it's basically just a platform for like freedom of hate speech essentially. But Russell Brand doesn't care, and now he's just basically being the interviewer for Rumble. Like, this guy is just lowering himself to such an amazing degree in this video.
Where my focus is, Stephen, tends to be on the movements of power and finance and how the neoliberal establishment has been co-opted by the same financial interest that 30 or 40 years ago would have been presumed to be affiliated with the conventional right. I'm talking about Wall Street, military industrial complex, big pharma. And over the period of the pandemic, it became sort of plain to me that what we were being offered was a lens to how power was operating, and the fact that there was no meaningful opposition from anywhere other than spaces that are typically now labelled as the alternative right. This is where we saw sort of criticisms emerging, where people were willing to have the conversation. Like, you know, there are areas where we disagree, but I believe that you love your children. I believe that you're a man of principle, that you care about what you're saying, that you're on your journey. And I don't think that I know enough about the world to foreclose on your right to say stuff.
What I'm saying is you wouldn't be able to be you if, for example, you were coming up in more so the right-wing echo chamber, which is something I fight against a lot.
I don't know if Russell actually believes this, but basically what he's saying is that the people who were challenging like the status quo and the, I guess, power centralization during the pandemic, they were all on the alt-right. No one else was doing it. No one on the left was doing it. No one, I guess, liberals were doing it. And it just shows he fundamentally either doesn't understand or he's trying to make the far right look way better than it really is. Because loads of left-wing people were, of course, criticising the response to the pandemic. Loads of people were criticising especially how America handled it. Terrible. Were literally sacrificing humans on the altar of capitalism to ensure the economy wouldn't tank rather than prioritise human life. That happened in pretty much every single country, but no more apparent was it than somewhere like America and the Western world. And then he's acting like, because these people were skeptical of people like Dr. Fauci and maybe vaccines, these were the only people having these conversations. These were the only people willing to challenge power and stuff like that, because either he's just gone total conspiracy theorist, where he's just thinking about Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci all the time, trying to like give you experimental medical treatments, or he's just saying this to try and make someone like Steven Crowder look better. I don't know what is worse. And then you just see him basically giving Steven Crowder like a lot of compliments, saying like you basically can't judge him because he like loves his children and seems like a nice guy, when he's a pretty terrible guy in public and also a pretty terrible guy in private. It really doesn't seem like there's much redeeming qualities about this man. But Russell Brand doesn't mind painting him in this very positive light. If Russell Brand knew he had a left-wing audience, he would not be taking this job at Rumble. He would not be interviewing Steven Crowder like this, and he wouldn't be basically promoting Crowder like this and acting as like Rumble's representative in this interview. It's really just amazing. And it's just sad because even though he was eccentric and prone to conspiracy theories, what Russell Brand used to represent was like one celebrity. He would just say what he thought and didn't care. But now, although it might seem to people like he's still doing that, like he's saying unpopular things, he's saying like conspiracy theories, there's money in that. There's money in it because that is how the Republican Party and conservatives in America have shifted way more to conspiratorial thinking and way more to demonizing wokeness, the left, and lumping them all together. Like the left is like from me to Joe Biden and stuff like that. And that is where Russell Brand realizes he can get more followers. And that's why he's being this weird centrist, not even challenging Tim Pool, Steven Crowder on anything bad they've done, just giving them a free pass and promoting them. And that is the state of Russell Brand at the moment. So while you guys might see him on Bill Maher saying something you agree with, just remember he is either coming at it from a different lens now, or he's just doing it in a way that panders to the right wing for a variety of reasons. Money, maybe. Rumble might have paid him a fair bit, like they paid Steven Crowder. But for me, watching all these videos over like a number of years, I firmly believe it's an ego thing. I firmly believe he just wants this massive audience and he will do whatever it takes. And he feels like he can push this version of himself out there that will be more popular. But he is an actor after all. It feels very manufactured. He talks slower. He chooses his words more carefully. And his accent is gone as well, which to me just speaks to the fact that these are all conscious decisions to make him more palatable to a certain group of people. But don't worry, I'm never changing my dialect. I'm never changing my accent. I'm never selling out to the right wing like Russell Brand has done. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.